from the time I was born in the hospital until the time I clinically died in the hospital at 11:11 p.m. in operating room number 11 for 11 minutes. It's this amazing tree, and this is where my life review took place. I could see all this in slow motion taking place, and this rotating tunnel began to spin at a very unusual speed. And it was at this time that I began to see people from my past.
Welcome back to the Let's Talk Near Death podcast. This is the second part of my conversation with near-death experiencer Peter Anthony. Peter had an amazing experience. He was left with some remarkable gifts, and today we'll be talking about that and talking about his life since his experience. If you haven't yet listened to part 1 of this episode, I highly recommend you do that, and once you've done that, come back and join us here. And now on to part 2 of this episode.
So my question for you is, when you came back into your body, you talked about how you slammed back in your body, you felt the pain, you could sense the drugs, all of these types of things with you. Physically, things probably didn't feel very good or look very good on the outside.
No, they did not.
But you had that undeniable belief that everything was okay, or that you could see that in your future you weren't going to be blind, you would be able to walk, you would have a great future?
I had to concentrate on that because here's what happens. Here's what happened. When the doctors, and this is where and many are going to relate to this. When someone else's opinion, meaning a medical doctor, comes in and says to you, you only have 3 months to live. And I'm going, okay, now that's not what I saw on the other side. Okay. So in my opinion, meaning I didn't blurt it out, I'm thinking he's wrong. And I'm going to prove this guy that he's not coming from the place of understanding me and what I'm capable of doing. Because I knew on the other side that our mind, what we put into our mind day in and day out is this machine of manifestation. Yes. Thoughts really do become things.
Yes.
And so I remember when he came in and he came in and brought me the x-ray of my intestinal tract and, the tumors they discovered. And I mean, it was just whole negative, and I said, just do me a favor. Now, this is after many, many, many months, and I would go in and out of my vision. Even to this day, I still have problems with my vision. Sometimes I have blurry vision. Sometimes I have perfect vision. But on those days where I had semi-vision, and I would still look through a magnifying mirror, I said, Doctor, this is what I want you to do, Dr. Miles. I want you to bring me what a healthy intestinal tract looks like from your medical journal. So he made a laser copy, and he brought it to me. And so I handed him the x-ray and I said, I want this. So every day I focused on what a healthy intestinal tract looked like.
Yes.
And so in my mind, visually what I did, I imagined this is what my intestinal tract was going to look like. Mm. And that began the step of me beginning to see miracles in my life. I also did research on garlic and aloe vera. So I was drinking pure glasses of aloe vera before my day started and at the end of my day. I began to take acidophilus. I began to take probiotics. All these things that I became this person of, this is how you heal your body. Mm. And speaking of, I was reading Louise Hay's Heal Your Own Body. I could not get enough information because when I was on the other side and I go through that tunnel, and I said to you earlier, I was downloading all the collective intelligence, the Teslas and the Einsteins and the Bible and your high school English teacher, all this stuff was being downloaded in my mind. So I thought, okay. So right off the bat, I learned then that I need to fuel my mind. So I read everything. Shirley MacLaine's book, Out on a Limb, Marianne Williamson, Marilyn Ferguson, Louise Hay, Deepak. There wasn't a person I didn't read, Tony Robbins. This stuff made sense to me.
Yes.
It just seemed to resonate with my aha. And so the more I read, the more it was almost like that rabbit hole, but it was the Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole that led you to the best possibility, the best outcome. And every book I read led me to something else and something else and something else and something else.
Yeah, that's what happened.
And so it was just one of those areas in life for me is like, I got out of and so many of us, especially men, we are controlled by this doesn't make sense, and this is not logical, and I need a logical explanation for this. I got out of my left brain and went to my right brain, and I have lived on an intuitive level since the 90s.
Yeah.
I do not trust logic. I trust my inner sense. I listen to my inner voice. And if my inner voice says to me, don't do that, then I don't do it. And so I go back to the doctor. It didn't make sense to my inner self because I knew what I saw. And here's the thing that was so tough for me, answering your question as I digress. Was it easy? No. Why? Because everyone, number one, called me a whack job. I could hear what the doctors were saying. I got an article published in the Johns Hopkins Medical Institute, which is interesting because I was the only non-medical person who got a story published in their journal.
That's amazing.
But listen to this. The very doctors throughout my life, meaning from near death up until current, never listened to me. I was stunned that when they called me to write the article, two, that it took them almost a year to make the decision to allow me to write the article, and three, I got it published, and I write about what it's like from my perspective dealing with the doctors and their negative opinions of me and the nurses, because they didn't have hope for me. I could hear the nurses saying, he's not going to make it. And I would say, yes, I am. I would not allow someone else's opinion to detour me. I couldn't. Now call that, crazy thinking. Well, look where I am today. I'm alive. I can see, I can walk, or I could have just given up. And I have to share this with you. And I hope, I would love to talk about this or have a guest panel someday on near-death experiencers. How many people who've had the experiences who commit suicide? Because like me, I wasn't welcomed by my family.
Yeah.
My friends, my relationships, they all left me. What seemed to fall apart back in the 90s all fell together. And so when you're losing people and people don't come to see you in the hospital and people don't want to hear stories, and then add the fact that I became a homicide psychic detective and had a near-death experience. Well, hi, honey, I'm going to the cemetery today. Oh, hi, honey, I got to go work on go find this ghost in Gettysburg. Who's going to want to be involved with you? I got that,
Yeah, exactly. It's very real. They talk about the gifts, and I go, well, there's definitely another side to the gift. Is it always a gift? I mean, we turn a bit crazy.
Responsibility, that.
Oh, well, yes, there's that too. Yeah.
So I learned that very early. So, but as I said, so I go back to my simple remedy: provide the people, the places, and the situations, and I'll just show up. So God provided all the great people, and God provided the doctors who finally listened to me. And so when it happened, I was grateful.
Yeah. And
when I saw that I could walk again, and my doctor, how did you do this? They never knew that I weaned myself off the medications. So they bring all these medications, they put them in a little paper cup and you have to swallow and drink. So I'd sit there, guzzle them in my mouth, and the nurse would leave and I'd spit them out. Yeah. And then I would take my vitamins, my homeopathic thistle, the garlic, and I could go down the list of all the things, the Native American stuff that I was eating. And that's how I healed my body. So that was the first thing I did. Not listening to the doctors, but listening to my aha. The second thing I began to do is I literally, with my IV, I would get out of bed and take the IV. I named my IV Ernest. So Ernest and I would go take a walk as much as I could down the hall, because I thought if I had a partner here, he and I could do this together. And so I know I sound but that's how I did it. And it just was the way I got through life. And it wasn't easy. I can have myself a poor, pitiful party for Peter and cry about the people that say goodbye. And I could say the same thing. And people said, don't do sightings. It'll ruin your career. I did it. It launched my career. Don't leave CBS. I did it. It launched my career. Don't write a book you can't write. It launched my career. You can't write for Johns Hopkins. I did it. All my life I've been told what I couldn't do. And I had to learn to listen to me what I could do. And that's what changed my life. So it's a simple formula that is given to us on the other side. Every near-death experience person will tell you love, compassion. We're here to help. We're not here to judge. And so when you see on our political landscape, we have mean leaders who are passing laws that basically go against the laws of mankind. Just because it's a law doesn't mean it's so. So you have to judge in your own self what feels right to your aha. And for me, when I see these things, so I go on lectures all the time, and people want to talk about our political, landscape now. And I'm very, if a person is truly coming from love and kindness, you'll see it. And if they're dividing people, then that should be your aha. You keep it simple. And people get it. I think it's important now for all of us. Think about this lockdown where you are in New Zealand. Think about where I am in the fires and the earthquakes. California's really been hit. But, again, we've been given a time to appreciate Mother Nature. Nature will go on regardless of whether we are here on this planet in or not.
Yeah.
It just will. LA is a thriving city. And when it was locked down, all of our freeways, nobody was on it except the guys on skateboards.
They would have been loving that.
Oh, they were having the best time.
Brilliant.
To me, I was like, I could not get enough of those videos.
Yeah, totally.
So that's how I watched, how I got through the lockdown. Everything I did I would watch comedies, I'd read good books, I would listen to meditation music, I would meditate. I did everything that happened to me that helped me to heal from my near-death experience, not only physically, but inner as well. And to this day, I still have a problem, with the stuttering. Not too much. Sometimes when I had gone on some radio shows and I was interviewed by an atheist and who wasn't very kind, I began to stutter on his show. And he wasn't very kind to me when he called me back. But I thought, you know what, Peter, use this as a good example, know your subject, and have a good time and connect with your audience, and don't hold on to it. And it was a great lesson.
Yeah, definitely.
Again, we go back to me. My thinking is every day is a homework assignment. Am I gonna pass it today, or am I gonna procrastinate on it? So I go back to that. The difficult part of circling back to your question, yes, it was difficult. It was sometimes heartfelt. There were times I cried. I remember crying when I lost an amazing relation. I just was stunned. And I remember going to a park, doing my meditation, and I remember feeling sorry for myself and crying. I thought, no, you're not going to do that. Look at this, like everything that happened this moment was the perfect moment of opportunity to learn from this relationship. So bless it. And I did. And, I've learned a revolving door. Tomorrow the door will present something else. It just will. I believe that.
I love how you're talking about this homework and these assignments that we have. Do you think we can fail them? And if we don't make it through the homework, do we get another chance again and again until we get through it?
That's what I learned on the other side. Okay, so I sound like I've had an easy life, and it's not. I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy greasy and you're going to change your thought tomorrow. We're kind of like, we kind of look at our consciousness like the ATM machines. If I go in and put my ATM card, I'm going to get $15 or $20 back. That's not how it works. How it works is you have to do it daily, and you have to believe, because where most people fail at spirituality 101 is they will do their homework and they get bored with it, or it's not working. Well, I wish for a boyfriend, and what I have is an alcoholic and he's still beating me. Well, somewhere you didn't do your homework, because if someone showed up and you're still having problems in an abusive relationship, did you really go deep? What is it in you that's attracting the same type of relationship? So I say go back to the drawing board and really dig deep, because what it's saying is that I'm on some level unworthy. But if I believe that I'm the best thing today on this planet, and I deserve great relationships and great income and great friendships and great conversations, why would the universe not bring that to you? So on some level, you have to start believing that. And so go back and do your homework daily and every day. I remember I wanted everything to happen all at once. And I'm known as Peter Anthony, the 11th hour miracle person. Everything always happens to me at the 11th hour. I have just learned to understand that things come to me at the 11th hour, not because, I think the test of it is to have blind faith, to trust. When everything around you says to you, this is not going to work out, but inside that it's going to, that's having blind faith. That's blind trust and believing it to be. And so I would always do things that would just challenge that. And it would always show up at the last hour. My job at CBS came at the last hour, 4:30 in the morning, when someone made a huge mistake after they didn't want me. And I could have said, it's 4:30 in the morning. I don't want to work for you guys now. You had 6 months to say yes, and now you decide me you don't. I didn't do that. I thought, okay, so this is where my day starts. Again, choice, free will. Where you are. If you go into and I'm, I don't have time to meditate every day. So what I do, I have asked God, universe, these masters, when a certain song comes on that I identify with, that I heard from the other side, no matter if I'm in a session with the client, I'm talking on the phone, wherever it is, when I hear the song, excuse me, I'll be right back. And I will go in 5 minutes and listen to the song, and I go to my gratitude list. And so when that song shows up, I know that this is my time to talk to the other side. And so therefore it becomes my ritual to the other side. Therefore it shows that I'm doing my part, and therefore it shows that I am serious, and therefore it shows that I am committed, and therefore the universe will provide.
I love that idea. That is so great. So you just you chose a song, said when the song happened.
One song.
Yep. That's it.
And an example, during this whole lockdown, I said, okay, so it's been really tough here in Palm Springs. So I said, okay, so all my friends come move back to Texas, come move to Arizona. I have this friend of mine, he's way out there, but I love him to death. He said, we're going off the grid, man. You need to come live with us. We're going to build our houses, and we're going to get our own water. And I'm like, it's going to be like Survivor, dude. You need to come with us. I'm like, okay, Dave, this sounds cool. So I asked God, I said, if I'm supposed to go to Arizona and go off the grid, I want a certain number. If you want me to stay in Palm Springs, provide the number 888. Everywhere I go, I see 888. Okay, God, I got it. I'm supposed to stay in Palm Springs for right now. You put a command out to the universe. You're having your conversation with God, your ascended masters, your angel, however you want to identify it. And if you believe that you are talking to the other side, which I know that I am, and all I'm asking for is a number, and I'm on my bicycle coming home, and I'm rounding a corner, and there's a cab driver, and his tag says California, 111-888 33. Okay, you're talking to me, God. Got it. And you move on. Start small.
Wow, I love how simple you make that sound. It's just beautiful. I'm going to have to try that out.
Well, it's like this. Every day we are provided a conversation with the other side, with God, the universe. It's a billboard that you see that speaks to you. It's a song. It's a conversation. It's Barbara at the park who's homeless, who says to me, oh my God, can you believe what this talking head said? I won't tell you who it is. Well, she's not really evolved, do you think?
Yeah.
And she tears the paper up. And so it was fun news. So I had a choice. I can go home and watch the news here on television, or Barbara could read it to me.
Yeah. Oh, wow. It's amazing, isn't it? I've got one question for you.
Sure.
We've come quite far away, but it's not leaving me this question. So I just want to ask you, when you were receiving all of the information, you're seeing the numbers, you're in the tunnel, and you're just getting these downloads from all of these teachers and like historic information, this amazing download of, information is the only thing I can word it as. How much of that stayed with you when you woke up?
A lot.
Did you feel like you woke up and suddenly your IQ is a lot higher, or you've got a lot more attention?
My IQ is very high. In fact, people, when they come over and they watch me, and they come to my office, here I am writing my second book, The Excellent Prophet, which is almost done. I'm working on a screenplay. I'm working on an ancient chart. I'm working on a murder case. My office looks like, I'm a madman, like a mad scientist, and I have my formulas and all my chem lab work just scattered everywhere. Everything I'm reading at the same time, and I'm listening to music in my headphones.
Yeah, I love it.
I can't explain it, but I'm like the mad scientist, and I cannot get enough information.
Wow.
You cannot provide me enough information. So an example, when someone gives me directions, I want to know about, is there, especially if you're given directions for me to go out into the country, I want to know what kind of tree. Don't tell me a big tree. Is it an oak tree? Is it an elm tree? I need to know everything.
Yeah.
Because I'm a visual person now.
Uh-huh.
And also I listen, and so I can feel the energy of what someone is saying. I can feel when they're not giving me the information. So as I said, so I go back, and for me, downloaded, yes, my sense of imagine, and you watched one of my videos when I worked on the borderline, when I worked on the concentration camp. So backstory. So here it goes. I'm working with a camera guy, sound guy, and a director, and beside me is an officer a security guard, who's crying the entire time while I'm filming this show about the Japanese refugee camp. And he's crying every time I'm telling we have to break because he was crying. I didn't know why this man was crying. So it's called remote viewing. So I would have to travel back into the 1944. Here I am in Death Valley, 118 degrees, walking, and walking. You saw me walking on basically desert ground with a concentration camp that was no longer, and me going back into time and talking about what was happening during that period of time. And when we finished taping, the security guard came up to me and said to me, I am the guy who fired the first shot and killed the Japanese people. It's because of me that we had this massacre. And so he decided it was his responsibility to become the security guard for this place. And when they were tearing it down, that's when all the hauntings began. And so he cried because I was so point on everything that happened during that period of time. The point I'm bringing to you, when you are going back in time, you're talking to present time, meaning your director and your camera guy and your sound guy. You're having a conversation on your right side with the crew. You're having your conversation with the ghost on the left side. And I'm having a conversation with me walking straight ahead. So you have to learn how to use your brain correctly. Yeah. Because you float in and out of the right, left brain constantly. And if you learn to balance that energy, yes, you can create anything. Anything is possible. We don't use our brains enough. What we use it for is fear.
Okay.
I hope I get a good. Yeah, we predominantly go to a place of fear or lack consciousness. We think by having more money, that's going to make us happy. All you're doing is creating a lot more lack consciousness. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
the very thing we ask for, we think is going to make us happy. And when it shows up, it doesn't make us happy. Then we go back to the same circle of discontent, unhappiness, bad relationship.
Exactly. Or if I get the next thing, then I'll be happy. And then you get there and then, I'll get the next thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's a vicious circle of a lack of consciousness. So what I tell all my people in my lectures, it's a very simple formula. Today, I ask for peace. Tonight, I ask for peace. End of story. And so when you're at peace, you go back to the tunnel. When you're at peace, you manifest everything because you ask for nothing other than peace. And the universe goes, you know what? This guy's at a great place, peace. Let's send him a little check in the mail. Let's send him a new client. Well, let's get that phone call from John Hopkins and provide him an opportunity. Do you see how that says? I ask for nothing other than peace. Tonight, I ask for peace. Tonight, I ask for peace. Tonight, I ask for peace. Amen. And when I go on my bike ride tonight, I go do my sit-ups and go talk to Barbara, I'm going to tell her about you. And so you're going to be, when I go and we have a labyrinth there, when I go do my walk, I'm going to say, thank you, God, for New Zealand and Auckland and talking to Kirsty today, because this is a great opportunity for not only myself, but for you and those who get this message. That's how you shift consciousness.
Definitely. I love that.
I'm happy. I'm thrilled.
Do you think that somebody who's got a more difficult life, maybe Barbara herself, her life sounds a little bit tricky, and she's got some obstacles there that she's navigating. Do you think that if we search for peace, that is the life that we've pre-chosen? Or why do some of us have more difficult lives than others? Is it about learning, or what is that about?
Okay. Love you for asking this question. And no one has ever asked me this question, so thank you. So as a numerologist, as an astrologer, and as I study ancient numerology and ancient astrology and ancient numerology. There's a thing called past lives. Now, I don't know if you believe in past lives. I do.
I do, yep.
Okay. So an example, I never understood why I had a fear of haircuts. And as a small child, up until my early 40s, I had a phobia of getting a haircut. It was, for me, the most difficult thing I could do. And so I said to self, Peter, you need to tackle this because this is becoming a problem and no one wants to cut your hair. So I thought, okay, I went and had a past life regression. And what I learned in that past life regression, at the age of 6, in my last incarnation, I was in Dachau, a Jewish boy, and I was going to the gas chambers. And the SS guard or the German Gestapo, whoever this person was, I mean the security guard, was shaving my head with clippers as I was going to my death.
Yeah.
So that's turned this into something. Okay, God, thank you for showing me the phobia of my haircuts. I release this today. Amen.
Yeah.
And as a miracle would happen, I got the best hairdresser and have been going to the same guy forever. And not only is he an amazing hairdresser, but he's also spiritual. And so when we go in and get a haircut, it's only therapy time for me.
Yeah.
And we share. So you see, you identify the problem, like I had identified the disease. You do your homework, which I did. You find the solution, which I did. And then you go live your life in peace, which I did.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is you've got to find out where these blocks are coming from. So that's circle back to Barbara. Homeless, living on the street, very intelligent woman. Now, I don't know her backstory, but as a numerologist, what I learned was this. When I am doing someone whose chart who was, an example, let's just use I don't want to use his name, our current president of the United States, who, in my opinion, is not coming from a higher place of consciousness. And he's very horrible to the Hispanic community. He's horrible to the Muslim community. He's horrible to women. Got it? So let's say it's time for him to die, and let's say he goes through his whole cleansing station, and in his next lifetime, he comes back homeless. And let's say women are the ones beating him and kicking him and insulting him. Or let's say the Hispanics, when he's coming up to them, get away from him, they punch him. On some level, you have to learn the lessons of perfection of soul. You follow me? So if you were sowing this seed in this lifetime as a horrible person, on the other end in your next lifetime, you've got to come back to experience that same formula of hate and bigotry to understand that when you cross over to your near-death experience, this is what I learned as a homeless person in this lifetime, because we all go to the cleansing station. We all have a life review. And we go back to what I said. You're not judging it. You're not going, oh, God, a horrible person I was. You're seeing at your own life, I didn't shine here as the president of the United States. So in this next lifetime, I've made the choice to clear out this karma to go back and be homeless. Now, I'm not saying that's how it is in all cases. But when you study this stuff, and there's so much, because every person's chart is different. What I learned on the other side, we come back as gay, straight, black, white, poor, wealthy, beautiful, unattractive, overweight, greedy, an amazing king, an amazing queen, or not a very good leader. We cannot understand the perfection of soul until we have experienced the life of an ugly man, a beautiful woman, an unattractive woman, a person of power, a king, or homeless person. Every lifetime affords us the opportunity to perfect the soul. And therefore, if you understand how choice works, that's why I said you become more responsible for every action that you take. Because if I'm going to be mean to this person, come my life review, or you might manifest that very quickly by a cab driver or the lady on the telephone on the credit card, at American Express or at the grocery store or CVS pharmacy. Someone may be rude to you, and you go, where was I rude in the last couple of days? It all comes back to us. And so therefore, if we are aware that everything we put out to the universe comes back to us like a boomerang, then you're a lot kinder and you take a lot more responsibility for your choices. Does that make sense?
It totally does, Peter. I've also heard the idea float around that we all have a specific purpose, which I tend to believe that we do have a purpose, but that some people's purpose isn't necessarily a positive one. And that's part of the ecosystem that we're all living in, that they're part in this big puzzle that we're all, some people call it a game, we've all got our different roles that we're playing, is to fulfill a role that isn't necessarily a positive one. So that might be where we get people who are very heavily involved in crime or they murder somebody, or, you know, I've had emails questioning me about my thoughts on Hitler's life, and, you know, were these people actually living out and fulfilling their purpose? But their purpose was a very specific role. And
every person's role is specified. And what I mean by that, I go back, remember I said the Lord of the Rings, you know, not everyone can be the elf. Not everyone can be Limley, you know, Orlando Bloom's character. Not everyone can be Gandalf. You know, some of us are the people who are fighting the orcs. You know, some of us are the children there, you know, holding our moms. Every incarnation is an opportunity for us to afford to be the best person possible. You know, when I look at Tina Turner's life, when I look at Ray Charles's life, when I look at Cher's life, when I look at even our vice president, Joe, of our country, is running for the president, Joe Biden, who stuttered, and how everyone made fun of him. Well, you do one or two things here. You can either make the best of it, or let people make fun of you, and then you don't fulfill your karmic destiny. So all of us, every day, is given a choice to be the best person possible. And in the next lifetime, or in this lifetime, you know, I've seen people in my industry that I thought would just rise to the occasion and be megastars. I've seen people that should have been stars that weren't. I've seen people who were stars in our industry, film, TV stars, the nastiest people, still the nastiest people, but there's this thing called rise and fall. We all rise to the top, and, you know, and we all fall to the bottom if we're not leading according to the life that we should be leading. You know, we all get our up and comings. I really do believe that. I really, really do. And I've seen it happen so much in our television film industry on so many levels. You know, I think about you know, Harvey Weinstein, and look what happened to this man. He got away with so much in terms of his abuse towards women. You know, I look at this current administration and what they're doing to the Hispanics and the Muslims and gays. It all comes around. It just does. So as I said, so for me, the most important thing to do is just to be at a place of peace, to be the best person I can be, and just let life deliver the very best gifts that they can for me. Because we all get our piece of pie.
Exactly. And I love that. That's exactly how I want to live as well. Just living by the law of love is really coming to me. It's all about love. How, if we can just live with the right intentions and try and play the best role that we can. It's resonating with me, Peter. Yeah.
Yeah. You just never know. I mentioned in one of my videos, and this is during my book tour, and I was on a grueling, 2-year book tour. And I came into Dallas, Texas, and Christmas snowing, and there was a young man. And this is being honest about, God, if I could have looks, this is the kind of look I'd like to have. He had the nose earrings and the tattoos and the shaved head and the muscles, and he had this really nice voice, but he was so unhappy and so miserable. And, and I'd see this guy in the elevator up and down the elevator for 2 weeks while I was there. And then on Christmas Eve, snowing, cold, walking out in the car, and he and I were the only one out there. And I said, "Have a Merry Christmas." And he started crying. And I had no idea why. He was going to go home and take his life. He was going to commit suicide that night. And for 2 weeks, my homework assignment, every day I went up the elevator and every day I went down the elevator, there was this young, good-looking guy. And God Universe said, "It's your job to speak out." And I did. I thought, he's not very nice to me. And he's, he doesn't speak. He's always not downtrodden. I thought, I was going to get in my car. Something said, "Go talk to this boy." And Kirsty, he came up to me and started crying and hugging me. He said, "You're the first person that's really taken an interest in me."
Oh, wow.
And then he shared the story of how he just lost his parents in Arkansas, and he was very close. And he moved to Texas to get away from Arkansas and the closed-mindedness. But he was lonely and he was lost. And I could relate to his story because so many people, when I had my near-death and came back, deserted me. And I was lonely and I was lost and I was concerned. But I had something he didn't have. I had a vision of what happened to me on the other side. So therefore, I had the courage to complete my journey. And all he needed was a nudge. And that nudge was, "Have a Merry Christmas." I let him cry in my arms, a complete stranger. I couldn't tell you his name. And I told him, I don't have a family. I lost all my family, but I go around rescuing animals. So I said, so my Christmas is spent buying gifts for all these rescue animals. And he looked at me. And so a complete stranger came into my life the 2 weeks, and I tried to cancel this. I was exhausted to cancel this tour because of the weather, but it didn't happen. I was meant to be there, not for the book tour, but for him in that garage on Christmas Eve.
Yeah. And we never know what's going on, do we? We never know the bigger picture. And that's where you talked about living by what your heart's saying, what you're feeling you're meant to be doing. It's so important, isn't it?
You don't know the shadows of someone else's life. So it's not my job to figure out their shadows as much as my job to be kind.
Yeah.
Do you see?
I totally see. Yep. So we need to live by the law of love. Yeah.
Yeah. So as I said, I'm not trying to sound like some, perfect guru here, because we all have our moments, and there are moments when I don't shine. I've had my moments on American Express, or my cable goes out, during the pandemic, and, the air conditioner goes out, and I'm like, okay, how much of this lockdown can I take?
Yeah.
You have to really sometimes really dig deep to get to the higher place. But I do it.
Definitely.
And if I don't, and if I go, and this is really for your audience, listen, if we don't shine today, and we have had a negative or bad experience, there's always tomorrow. And get up and be great.
Yeah.
I can tell you this, and I mean this, and I know you know this because I'm passionate about it when I talk about these things. I'm blessed. And I feel so happy to have had the life that I've had, because we go back, it's as though something was predestined. I was given a second chance to come back, me, Mr. Scrooge, and do something with my life. And how many of us have gone through divorce? We're given a second chance to reinvent ourselves. How many of us have been fired, and we can't take that with us, so maybe we get a new job. Or, I wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. I wrote my book on sticky notes. I even wrote the John Hopkins Medical Journal's story that got published in the 25-year anniversary on sticky notes. Then I typed it because who cares? But it's like, for some reason, every part of your life, when you're connected, flows magically, effortlessly.
Definitely.
And if your life is not flowing effortlessly, then bing, 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 hello, you're off. Ding, ding, ding. It's time to reevaluate. Ding, ding, ding. Trying to rethink. Ding, ding, ding. Restructure. Release. And that's what I do.
Yeah.
It's just simple. We make the world complicated.
Oh, we so do, don't we? We so do. And we take it so seriously.
Yeah. I just go out and, people think I'm crazy. I thank you. I'm glad. I take that compliment because, people always say, you're so happy. Yes.
Yeah. It's a great thing these days. Not many people are happy.
I'm just happy. But guess what? When you're happy, that's the pill called agelessness.
Totally. Yeah.
I'll go to my grave a happy person and blessed. And, children, I go out to the park and their parents don't understand. They just run to me.
Yeah.
Hummingbirds, I don't understand. I think it's a frequency thing, but hummingbirds fly around me all the time. Bats. My neighbors call me Dr. Doolittle because I go out and take my dog on a walk.
Yep.
And the bats all circle around me. I have hawks. I think it's a frequency. When we emit love vibration, I think the animal kingdom senses that.
Yeah.
And, so my neighbors, I have some neighbors who just, every time I walk out the door, they close their doors and shut their shutters.
Shut the windows.
Yeah. And they call the priest, here he comes.
Oh, no. Yeah.
But, I don't care because you know what? There's nothing more beautiful than the hummingbirds that float around and come in your apartment and just come toward you and float around on either side of and you hear that buzz.
Yeah.
There's nothing like having a spotted hawk hover over you as you're walking your dog.
I don't know. It sounds a bit terrifying to me.
No, it's just lovely. It's like, thank you, God, for Mother Nature, for coming up to my door and feeling welcome.
Definitely.
I'm thank you for allowing me that gift.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And there are so many gifts. I know we haven't even touched on gifts. I know you came back with psychic abilities, you talked a little bit about the numerology. Are you happy to just take a few more minutes? I know this has been quite a while.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, my job today is to have a conversation with you today.
Okay, wonderful. I love that. Time. Okay, so my question is, when did you first realize that you had these abilities? You talked previously how you saw a ghost. And that was, I can't remember quite the context it was in, but I remember thinking, oh, okay, that's when he saw a ghost. What was that like when you saw spirits and when you realized I've got this ability? What was that like for you? Was it terrifying?
No, it wasn't. In fact, the complete opposite. I was involved, and I write about this in my book, and many people who read this love story about this woman that I was involved with, it just breaks their heart. I don't want to give the cow away for the milk, but it has a tragic ending. And she came to me while I was in the hospital suffering. I was here in ICU, and she came to me in the hospital, and I saw her in blue lights. And she was supposed to come to my birthday party, and she never showed up. And I didn't know that she had died that night.
Oh no.
So she and her brother, who had Down syndrome, came to me while I was in ICU in a blue spirit form and said, we're okay. And that began my journey of the other side. And when I got out of ICU and went to into my own room, back during the AIDS epidemic, I always say by the time gossip travels around the world, truth is just putting its shoes on. Because I was in the middle of the AIDS epidemic in a hospital, and they just assumed I was homeless and gay, none of the nurses wanted anything to do with me, and one nurse in particular. And so at nighttime, she would be the nurse to come in and do the vitals, or check on the vitals. And she didn't want to be in the room. And so the first spirit that appeared to me was a Native American Indian. And he was the spirit that got me on thistle, that got me on bark, that got me on root, meaning the different homeopathic remedies. I didn't know what they were. So I would tell my friend, Nora, I said, well, go get thistle. She said, where am I going to get thistle? I said, just go to the health food store and find out where you can get thistle, and find you get root bark, and find out where you can get me some acidophilus, or find out or where you can get me some pure garlic or pure aloe vera juice.
Yeah.
And that's what started it. So I began to communicate with the spirit world when I was in the hospital. And what I learned, for your audience, and you're going to be baffled by this, I always say, if you really want to talk to angels and you want to have a conversation, there's a thing called the thin veil. And the thin veil in the physical world, meaning parks and mountains and oceans, where land meets water, where land meets sky. When you're doing your homework and trying to connect with the other side, meaning angel world, I put my foot in the pond, my bare foot, and I have my other foot on earth, and I do my gratitude list of what I'm grateful for. I'll do that tonight. And that's when you convene with those people on the other side. And I began to do that in the hospital. And I began to talk to the spirits that would come and visit me. And this is what I said, the doctors that were surgeons there, and the nurses that had passed, would all come to me and would talk to me. And, you say in the movies where, I can see dead people and they're talking to me, but I would actually have these conversations, and they were the ones telling me what to do. And they were also telling me the medications that the doctors were giving that were causing my physical body harm. So I would talk to the doctor about, my hemoglobin level. I would talk about, the blood levels. I would talk about the side effects of prednisone. How are you knowing all this? Well, you can't tell the doctors that you're talking to, So
right?
Yeah. Have you ever seen the movie Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg?
Yeah.
All right. Busy. But they would come and visit me. And what I don't like, and I write about this in my second book, The Excellent Prophet, which is about to be released here very soon. But Hollywood has taken the spirit world and has turned it into what I call the boo effect, B-O-O effect, E-F-F-E-C. In other words, in order to have good ratings, that scare our audience. most cases that I have worked on, not all, but most cases, I have to say 90% of the cases I've worked on are nothing more than trapped spirits who want to go into the light. It's it. That's real simple. We all, as we die, will have a near-death experience, and it is our job as human beings to go to the light, to go to the other side. And so all I have done is help the spirit world, those who are trapped, go to the other side. And some of the most grueling cases I've worked on, an example like that serial killer, had 14 boys. All they wanted to do was go towards the light.
Oh, wow.
And I was able to help their parents find their bodies. Now, people would find that very grueling and very gruesome, and I get that. But think about what I'm doing and what I'm doing for the spirit world.
Yeah.
So, how you perceive that, and this is why I have so many problems with the evangelical community, because they write me, I get so much hate email every day from the extreme right. And they go on Amazon and post horrible reviews, and they send me threatening emails, and you name it, they've done it. But you know what? I stand in my truth, as we all should. And when there's light, when there's love, and when there's beauty inside a spirit, that stuff just washes down and goes nowhere. I send them back to the native nothingness from whence they came and go on my world. And so the spirit world has been talking to me since my near-death experience, since I was in ICU. And why they show up in my life. And those things that go bump in the night, yes, the clocks and the watches. I never can keep a watch very long. I have all my watches stop at 11:11. I now have pulse activated watches that I use. And when I go through TSA, I'm always the person that sets off the dinger. It's just who I am. The higher the frequency we are, the more upgraded we are in terms of our consciousness, the more we're going to screw with our audio and our technical things, our radios, our DVD players, our iPads, whatever. That's been a part of my process. Because we are right now, I'm going to say it's very important. I'm on this roll here, and I'll circle back around to your spirit world, but it's important. This lockdown has afforded us to downgrade so that we may upgrade. And what I mean by that, we have been slowed down to review, to rethink, to reanalyze, to restructure, to release, whatever you want to say it, to basically find a new way of living and thinking. We're going into a whole new paradigm here, January 20th, 2021. And so it's up to you and I, while we're in this downtime, to really get rid of all this stuff that no longer serves purpose to our consciousness. And by slowing down, we upgrade and we spin our vibration to a higher level of consciousness. So you downgrade to upgrade. Does that make sense? You slow down to manifest into your world those lessons and love that you need so quickly. It just, for me, that's how it works. So I slow down and I receive my information. And then again, I try to let go of judgment. I have an observation of things, but no judgment. Back to the hospital, the spirits began to come see me. Then on my very first homicide case I worked on, oh my God, CSI, the homicide detectives, the police department, I had to go do, it's called test the psychic, test the psychic, test the psychic. I had to go into an unmarked car and talk to a homicide detective who didn't believe in anything, but all he knew was I was an expert in numerology, and all he knew that I was a special effects makeup artist, and all he knew on his end was that we had 14 boys that were missing. We had a victim that had been shot by a very unhappy father because he came on to his son, and then his other son was missing, and that's all they told me. So when I showed up, and here I am, the two homicide detectives, I'm in the backseat of the car, and they're insulting me and calling me a circus act in front of me. And then I thought, I could have said, okay, take me back, or I arrive on the crime scene and saw the 14 boys that had been killed. And they started communicating with me and giving me the details of what actually happened. Well, now, CSI wasn't happy to see me. The assistant district attorney wasn't happy to see me. And the police weren't happy to see me. So you can imagine back in the 90s, people like me, there just weren't. Yeah. So I had to show up and not let the opinions of others people to negate what the other side was trying to converse with me about. And I had to listen to them because they wanted to go the white light. And it was my job to help them to solve the case. And that led me to another case that led me to finding missing animals, children. To this day, and I haven't worked on murder cases in such a long time, but there's not a time where I don't get an email. Please help me solve this. My son's missing, or my son was murdered, or my daughter is missing, or my dog is missing. I get those all the time. And you can imagine, I had a case not too long ago, and I was on book tour, and I was in the South, in Charlotte, in North Carolina, and there was a missing child. And the neighbor called and knew that I was there and heard about me because I had some radio press. And they contacted me and the facilitator. And I thought, I can't stop this lecture. But I knew that the child was dead. And I don't want to be the person who shows up on a crime scene, the psychic who shows up, in the South with the detectives and the police to say, I'm sorry, because they don't welcome that. I mean, in their world, I'm a nutcase. So you have to make a decision about, as a spiritual person, when do you share words with people who will get the words you're about to share and understand? Yeah. And that's a responsible issue. So I've learned to kind of very quietly step away from that world. And the spirit world constantly talks to me day in and day out. I know when I go into to Walmart and I go to, you'll see a missing child's bulletin board, or people that are missing. Sometimes I go past that bulletin board and I know who's done it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So you can't switch it on and off. It's constantly on.
It happens when I least expect it.
Right.
I was working on a case in a haunted Catholic church in downtown Los Angeles. And I was working with a host that was just horrible. The guy from Australia who was up for the gig didn't get it, but he was so brilliant. He did his homework, and he was amazing, and he knew this side, and the other was the celebrity host who was so not into this stuff. But I remember no one would listen to me about the young boy whose life was lost in the custodian's basement. And, you just, when spirits show up, they show up. The spirit world, when you're working on a TV series, they don't have a union and they don't get coffee breaks,
Yeah, exactly.
Basically, when spirits show up, and every time I show up, they show up. And I would tell it to the producer or the director or the camera guy, I'm here, the ghosts are here, let's go tape. Well, no, we got to do this with sound, or no, and it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, wow.
Now sightings did allow me a 30-minute walkthrough, and I would do my 30-minute walkthrough and come back and go on camera. And so I still go back to that main principle. When I work on a case, and it's been a while since I've worked on a case. I worked on a case last summer, and I was with the crew that did not believe me until it actually happened, when all the audio and all the cameras and everything went kind of cattywampus and all the blue orbs showed up. But I was having a conversation with this gangster, and he actually grabbed me and threw me against the wall.
Wow.
That stuff you don't forget.
Yeah.
So, but there, as I said, 90% of the cases I've worked on are just good spirits. The other that I've worked on have been, that is the reason why I don't work on these anymore, because it's too tough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you never know what you're going to get into when you go into the spirit world.
And you take that home with you, do you? Like when you leave the site?
Not only do I take it home with me, but they come home with me.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So, I mean, that's quite invasive, isn't it? You don't get away from it. You've got your personal space there with you. Yeah.
Well, like last night at 3:30 in the morning, and it was spirits. They're running on my roof on the top of my condo. Like little gremlins. Yeah.
Oh. So what do you do about that?
So, but it's aggravating, and they leave me alone. I mean, I've had things, that have gone kind of very strange. As I said, clocks, things falling off the shelf. Those things, yes, they happen. People don't realize they happen because the ghost is trying to get your attention. But Hollywood has turned it into, oh my God, it's demonic. Well, not all times. It's that, I want to talk to my father. I got an email right before I went on your podcast today from a lady. I don't even know where she's coming in from. And was complaining about, she knows that her father's communicating with her, but she wants him to show up in physical form. And all that's happening is all these blue orbs are all around her bedroom. And she was complaining about seeing the orbs.
Right.
So it goes back to a lack of consciousness. She wants dad in physical form. Dad is speaking to her by orbs because she and her consciousness are not ready for her to receive her dad in physical form. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
And so she's complaining about, and I told her what to do, and she was complaining in this email about me. Well, you didn't give me enough information. Go, all I'm seeing are blue orbs everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so why don't you go Google blue orbs and see what they mean?
Yeah.
So you see, it's all about how we think and perceive and how we go to choice. And I'm not here to teach her. I'm like, I'm gonna just let her figure it out. But don't complain. Welcome. Your father is communicating with you. Not many people see blue orbs.
Exactly.
And we're not talking one orb. We're talking a whole series of orbs.
Yeah.
And if she would just reach inside, okay, so why are these orbs here, Dad? Show me. And maybe if she tuned in to Googling, or maybe she heard a song, or maybe she wanted to be ghosts or whatever. If she was truly spiritually evolved, she would be guided to the reason why.
Can we go back? The 14 boys that you talked about, you were talking about how they were in between. They wanted to be released to the light.
Well, first of all, their bodies need to be identified.
Yeah.
And where they were. Second of all, the crime needed to be solved and who did it. In fact, to be honest with you, when I showed up, the only reason I mentioned the 14 boys is because when I showed up, the police and the detectives didn't know that 14 boys were missing. It was me who mentioned that to them. So there was kind of a mishap when I said that in the ride over there with the two homicide detectives who were treating me like a comedy act, and I was a circus act. But it was me who discovered that. It was me who said, this is what's happening here. What happened was that this was a serial killer who used astrology and numerology as a guide point to murder these boys. And so when I showed up on the crime scene, the police in the backyard, they had these, I don't know do you guys know what medicine balls in there, exercise balls? Yeah. Okay. So there were 12 balls in a circle in the backyard. There was a yellow ball in the center, and there was another ball towards the shed. And the police were walking all over that. They didn't mark it off as a crime scene. And I said, get that police officer away from those balls. He said, why? I said, that's an astrology wheel. And here I am talking to police. What do you mean an astrology wheel? Well, what had happened, this serial killer went out and identified he had to find an Aries. He had to find a Taurus. He had you see, went all around the zodiacal sign. Right. And he would murder these boys either on a full moon, a waxing moon, or a new moon, and would bury them and bury their bodies out in the desert or Yosemite or one of those areas outside of Los Angeles. So I'm telling them where the bodies are buried, and they're like, "What are you talking about? We're not here for the boys." They realized when the police discovered a boy's body and I described in detail what he had on, they knew I was serious. And they took me serious. So as I said, for me, the boys wanted to communicate to me about the death, how it happened, and I won't go into the details because it's pretty gruesome. I don't want to bring your audience down. And what I saw and where it took place. And, there's this thing called closure. And spirits want closure. They want their cases solved. And I've worked on cases that I've not solved. But that case I did solve. And I watched as I drove off in a cab, as I'm looking at the back end of the cab, the backseat of that cab, all 14 of those boys in spirit form were at the curb waving goodbye to me.
Wow.
So think about that payoff. It wasn't the CSI. It wasn't the district attorney. It wasn't the cops that treated me poorly. You have to take all that and push it aside. It was the 14 boys that said, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's important.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And not everyone can do this.
Well, exactly.
And not everyone, maybe that's why I have such a weird sense of humor, but, I think there's so much that we as a consciousness are not doing to get to the next level. Because we are consumed in greed, money, education, we're, the appointment, the job or our nasty boss, whatever it is. People are not basically happy because of their lives. And so we're not advancing our consciousness towards the next level. So think about what the universe has done. They've stopped Mother Earth and have forced many of us to think, to appreciate, to ponder. And nature has continued. Traffic stopped. For the first time in years, LA was smog-free.
Yeah, it's amazing,
and
isn't
for
it?
me, yeah, I mean, but imagine the guys on skateboards going down the 405, which is it's a parking lot of bumper-to-bumper traffic from 5 a.m. until, 9 p.m. And to see these boys on skateboards on the bridges and on the freeways going downtown Los Angeles through the Mixmaster, having a grand old time. It was beautiful.
Yep, exactly.
Or the clear beaches. So you see what I'm saying? So it's not Mother Nature, it's not Mother Earth, it's us that need to change.
Yeah. Peter, we have talked, this is one of the most in-depth and longest interviews I think I've ever done. We have talked about so many topics, so many things.
Well, I kind of zigzagged. I didn't mean to, but I felt so energized to be with you today.
No, it's great. It's absolutely great. I just wonder, is there anything that you can think of that we might have missed, or is there anything really important, your number one thing that you think people need to hear? Or
yes,
what are we finishing on? What is your one key message that you want to get across?
That each and every one of us has been given purpose on this life. Every person on this planet, every animal, every blade of grass, every tree, every ocean wave that caresses our ankle, everything is connected to Source, to God, to the Ascended Masters, to the angels. It's all connected. So therefore, if we abuse something on this planet, we are abusing ourselves. If we are not kind to someone here, someone else is experiencing that pain. Every action that we do affects someone else. That's what I learned on the other side. So therefore, that's why choice is so important. Today, I ask your audience to really go deep and find out why I'm here. What can I do to make the planet a better place to live? How can I have a better relationship? How can I be a more loving person? And how can I help the animal kingdom on this planet? And how can I help the environment? Because what good is all that if the planet basically just burns down? What good is if the water goes away? What good is the job and have all the money when we lose everything? See, everything is connected. That's my message. Everything we do on this planet, what I do, what I say, affects everyone. And I'll say this in my closing statement. There's one of you that's listening tonight. Sorry, I'm going to get emotional. And I can feel your tears now because I'm crying. You have purpose. Don't let someone's religious opinion of you dissuade you from achieving your job and your goal, purpose, and life purpose in life. Don't let them take that away from you. I just need you to shine and don't forget, because I know what it's like to have been ridiculed. I know what it's like to be asked to leave a party. I know what it's like to be ridiculed by the police working on a homicide case. I know all that. I've felt it. I've seen it. But I also know, stand in your truth. Stand in your truth. We're spiritual people on this planet to achieve great things. And right now we're being called upon to shine bright. May you shine bright tonight. Thank you. God bless.
Wow. Thank you, Peter. I've got goosebumps as you were saying that, and I really felt that as well. So thank you so much. You've given us so much time, and I just value everything that you've shared with us today. So Peter Anthony, thank you very much for being here on the Let's Talk Near Death podcast. We will share your links. We wish you the best. And yes, wow.
Thank you, New Zealand. We love you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Let's Talk Near Death podcast show. If you've enjoyed it, please share it with your friends, tell people about it. I'd love to get these messages out there. Don't forget you can also pick up your VIP access pass for additional content at patreon.com/Kirsty Salisbury. You can connect with us via the Let's Talk Near Death Facebook page, and I look forward to catching you for another episode soon.